Well, good morning guys, hope you're all doing well. So we've come out today because it's obviously spring and the bluebells are starting to flower now, in the hope of getting some sort of woodland shots. Now, as you can see, there's bluebells out behind me here and they're coming out, but I think they're still about a week or so away from them being the best. But I think there's still the ability to grab a shot here. There's kind of a little bit of a blue carpet where the sun's actually been coming through this canopy of this woodland here, and they have started to kind of come out, so there's a bit of colour to work with. And there's also some of those lovely spring greens in the beech trees back there to kind of add a little bit of interest and depth to the image as well. So I think there's definitely something to work on here. It's kind of a start today. We were hoping that we'll probably get a whole day out of this woodland, but it's not looking likely. So I'm going to grab a shot here before we move on and see what else we can get today. I'll get you to the back of the camera and kind of show you what I've got lined up here. There we go. What you should see is I've got this in this lovely pano crop that I use quite often, the 65-24. I really love that format, and it works really well in this woodland because I'm trying to eliminate as much of the sky above as possible, because today it's uninteresting anyway. It's kind of white skies, grey, horrible skies, and I really want to focus in on the fact that there's all this colour in the bottom of the canopy down here. So we've got all these lovely bluebells in the foreground here. We've got this lovely sort of pine tree right in the foreground here, right in the centre of the frame almost. And then to the right, just behind that, I've got another tree. Now you'll notice that I've moved across a little bit so I kind of retain that separation. I'm trying my hardest not to get tree on tree, so there's not one sitting against each other and distracting to the eye. So I've allowed that separation there as best as I can make it in here. And I've zoomed myself in so that, oh, it's gone again. Where's it gone? There we go. That should be it back. So what you should see then is that I've got, it's kind of, the only thing that I've got really that's a massive problem here is that the ground slopes down from the top right corner to the left. And obviously there's not a great deal I can really do about that. As I've got myself levelled, I can't really straighten it or do anything with that. It's just, I've just got to work with what's there. What I do like, however, in the background there, you've got some of these new beech leaves, as I was discussing before, that are coming out back there, and that's adding a little bit of depth to the frame because you've got something to look at further back. It's not all just basically tree trunks all the way back. You've got something to break that up. And I've got this kind of quite open area down the bottom of the frame here, which is all the bluebells and the centre of interest, really. That's really what I want. So basically what I'm sitting at then is I'm at ISO 100, I'm at 1 second and f16. Now I'm not really concerned about the 1 second exposure because it's flat calm in here, there's no wind at all. And obviously when you're in woodlands like this, you're always going to be fighting against it being that slight bit darker. So you either have to increase your shutter speed or increase the ISO really, because I want to retain that f16 to get me the sharpest amount of detail possible through here. So yeah, I'm just waiting for a little bit of light. Where I am here, we've got a bit of an opening to the right of me here behind you guys. So I'm just waiting for a little bit of light to add a little bit more depth to the scene. And when I get that, I'll pop the shot up for you. So actually a good tip if you're working in woodland like this and it gets a little bit darker the further you move in, is if you can do this, and if it's possible, is to find scenes that are close to openings like this above me here, because what it's going to do is cast light into the areas you want to photograph. And obviously the further you go into the forest or the woods, it's going to get darker and darker and darker, and you're going to get less light. So if you can find something like this and a subject to photograph close to one of these openings, that'll solve a few of your light issues. Now, one of the other things I like to try with a scene like this is to use the black mist filter. Now, not only does it kind of give a little bit of atmosphere or enhance the atmosphere that's already there, is when you've got little bits of sky creeping into the frame around the top and you can't eliminate those, what it actually does is makes those bloom, and it kind of gives it an effect like it's almost like rays coming through, or it's blooming overexposed almost, so it looks softer in the image, so it's not quite as harsh and distracting. So I'll tend to either use a quarter stop or a half stop of the black mist filter, just pop it on because they're magnetic the same as the rest, and then take a shot. I've got exactly the same shot lined up, I'll just try it with that filter on as well as putting a polarizer on to see if I can bring out those colours. It just gives you something else to work with. If you've already got the scene set up, then trying one of these filters to give you a bit more of a creative effect is always worth a go. So guys, as you can see, we've moved on further up the valley now, away from the bluebells, because although they look nice, they're still not at the peak, as I was saying before. So I'm going to give those a little bit more time to start to blossom a bit more and maybe get a bit more vivid and a bit more bright, and then get a day that we've actually got a bit more light and maybe return to that location. We've actually come up to a place called Low Force now, and as you can see, a lovely waterfall similar to scenes that we were shooting on the last video there. But there's some really nice details in the waterfalls that are coming down. A little messy with the amount of rocks and everything that are in the background, and they're not particularly interesting, they're just kind of one sort of tone. The only thing that really sets them apart is this lichen that's on them. And then off in the distance, obviously you've got trees as a backdrop, and then the sky itself. Now the sky's getting a little bit more interesting than it was before. It's got a little bit more detail in the sky. So I'm going to try for a landscape shot here, maybe something like a 16:9, something like that. Simple shot really. I want these two falls, one on either side of the scene, but I don't want to be too front onto it. I want to be slightly off at an angle just to give it a little bit of dimension and something different in the frame. So I'll get that set up now, get you to the back of the camera and kind of walk you through my thinking with it. So guys, I'll show you the back of the camera now. I'll just press record again. So as you can see, I've got this 16:9 set up. So basically what I've got is, along the bottom section, the bottom third, I've got those two falls coming down from either side there. And the middle section, there's the next lot of falls, which are just a bit further back. And then beyond that, you've got the tree line, and above that, you've got the skyline. Now the problem I've got, as you can see, it's got quite bright here. So I'm having to adjust my exposures, or at least wait for the sun to go behind clouds again so I can get the correct exposure. I'm aiming for around about 1/4 of a second, somewhere around there. and at the minute I can only really get about 1/10 of a second because of how bright it is. What I'm having to do is take 2 different shots, one for the falls to get the right shutter speed, around about 1/4 of a second to retain all that texture and detail in the water, and a second shot about 2 stops under so I can retain the detail in the sky above. Because what's tending to happen is, because up above here is a lot brighter than down here, the sky's blowing out but the water's correct. So I'm going to take 2 shots, blend them in post so I get the best of both. When I get that done, and when the light settles down a bit, I'll pop that shot up for you. Now that we've got that shot out of the way, I noticed just over here, just behind me, I don't know whether you can see just in there, where that second part of the waterfall comes down, I think there's another shot. Now I tend to shoot water when you're in front of it, looking towards it, coming down. It's not that often you get the chance to stand above it and shoot down on it. So I want to try that and see what it actually looks like, as more like an abstract shot, shooting down onto the water, because it's going off in lots of different directions. I think it might look quite a cool shot as a square crop, something like that. So we'll get over there and give that a go. So guys, I'll just press record on the back of here so you can see what I'm looking at now. And as you can see, I've got a square crop lined up, and what I'm doing is actually focused right in on all this water that's kind of converging, going down from the top of the waterfall down into the bottom there. And the reason why is it kind of captured my interest because all the water's flowing at different angles and hitting each other, and also hitting this wall on the left hand side here, and that's capturing a little bit of light, reflected light, and I think that just adds a little bit of depth and a little bit of something to the shot. It's quite a nice sort of abstract shot, a close in detail shot that works quite well. I'm experimenting with the shutter speeds though, somewhere around about 1/4 of a second, 1/5 of a second, somewhere around there, to retain enough detail in the water but not blow the highlights out. And just waiting really for a little bit more light on these rocks on the left hand side, just to add a little bit more something there. So at the minute I'm at ISO 100, I'm currently at 1/5 of a second, but as I say, I'm experimenting with that. F16, square crop, and I've got the rocks on the left there, and then also the rocks on the right, just trying to add a little bit of balance to this square crop. As soon as I get enough light on these rocks, I'll pop the shot up for you. So guys, just on my way home now after a long day, and of course now the light is actually happening. It seems to be a theme lately that wherever we've been, we've kind of left an area and then the light starts to happen, and it's usually in a place where I can't get stopped or there's nothing to actually photograph, but it's just the way it's been going. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this week's video guys. Like and subscribe if you have, and I'll see you on the next video soon. Take care. Bye bye.